Good evening. Welcome to another Mothman-podcast. This podcast is where we discuss all things paranormal. I'm your host, Daryl, and with me is...
I'm your co-host, Ann. You can listen to our podcast on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Castbox, SoundCloud, and Deezer. Now let's dive into today's episode.
Before that, let's really tell the people what we're going to be looking at in the future. This podcast is for people who are curious about the paranormal. In the podcast, we will discuss aliens,
UFOs, cryptids, ghosts, spirits, Ouija boards, and all things paranormal. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast player to be notified when new episodes are launched.
And now, into the episode. Okay, Ann, on tonight's episode, we're going to talk about the interdimensional happenings. You know, in the past, everything's been from outer space, the extraterrestrials. So there's been some scientific proof now that's leading us to believe that these entities are not traveling through space, they're traveling through time and space. So that makes them running parallel to us, and they can jump into our universe by whatever means that they have, and then can jump out. And that makes a whole lot of sense. And when we're talking about like the Navy photos in the where they just disappear and then they show up hundreds and hundreds of miles away. Mm-hmm. So that really makes sense. And then and in the past we would talk about interdimensionals, and we would kind of put it back to Pulp Fiction writers, and it was like science fiction and all this kind of stuff that the kids would read about in their books. But now in the modern age, all we have to do is crack open a physics book, and one of the many things that you will find there is a cutting-edge research about the fabric of space and time, and then any and all dimensionals that truly exist there in that dimension of space and time. You've heard me speak numerous of times about the quantum mechanics, where energy can't be created or destroyed. So that's what I feel like happens to our souls whenever it leaves the body. Mm-hmm. But according to the quantum mechanics, it's also likely that a parallel universe does exist. Considering this vast universe, what's your feelings about some of this stuff?
Well, I think it's a very interesting theory. We've always thought of aliens being in outer space on other planets. And if we're going to say that they are extra-dimensional instead of extraterrestrial, then we have to consider ghosts and cryptids and other things like that. Are they extra-dimensional also?
Well, I agree with you 100%. That's where our research is going to be, hopefully, leading us in the near future. We will explore these mind-shattering possibilities, and we will dive into topics such as Mothman, Bigfoot, paranormal spirits, ghosts, flying saucers, shadow people, and many other paranormal activities. And the reason I threw Bigfoot in there is because I read an article not too long ago about this gentleman who's a miner in the mountains, and he kept seeing a Bigfoot would come up and eat apples off his tree. So he tried to trap this animal and do everything he could, but it would just appear and disappear out of like nowhere. So that kind of makes me think, well, is this animal traveling through time and space? Is it why have we not seen any Mothman? As Ann's brought up to me before, they just kind of show up every once in a while and then they're gone. So we need to be looking at that as a possibility of time and space. And we're also going to get into the theory of time and space and dwell into, for you guys that are very religious, we're going to talk a little bit about the religious aspects of the time and space. So there's a lot of things that we're going to see going forward. And I know this is not going to make a lot of sense to a lot of people out there that are logical minds, but we ask that you keep an open mind, and what you see is what you see. As I've said it many times before, I've been an investigator for 40 years, and people ask me, do you believe in ghosts? I believe in what I see and what I've been able to record and what I've been able to research and find out. You have to make up your own mind. We're the researchers for you. We're going to lay this data out there for you, and hopefully from that you're going to be able to pick up on it and make your own decisions. We're not trying to convince you one way or the other. We're just trying to present the facts as we find them. And we do put a little bit of our own self into it. That's just human nature. And I'm sure Ann's just like me. You would put your thoughts into it also. But,
of course. But
you're not going to be, we're going to put you out there and we're going to stick to the basics. We're going to stick to the facts of the case.
Exactly. And it's up to the listeners to do critical thinking. Pay attention to the evidence, do some critical thinking, and you decide what you believe.
Right. And we're also asking you, the listener, if you have anything that you would like for us to research or anything that you would like for us to talk about, please contact us. And you can reach us with all that Ann's already spoken about, and she'll repeat that for you.
Yeah, well, one great way to reach us is through our email, and that is mothman-podcast@gmail.com. If you want to give us the email, you can tell us your stories, and we can research things for you. If you have things that you'd like for us to look at, we'd be more than happy to take a look at them and see if we can get to the bottom of it, or see if maybe we'll all be believers.
And, I'm very excited about this new Mothman for podcast or format that we have here now. I'm excited to have Ann with me. And Ann being here with me, I wanted to ask you a question, Ann. What really brought you into the paranormal world, as I call it, the paranormal investigator world, and want to be on a podcast?
Well, all my life I've been a paranormal enthusiast. I've always been interested in everything paranormal, from cryptids, ghosts, aliens. Everything has just been so fascinating to me. I've watched any scary movie you can think of. I've watched it. Just anything strange, unusual, spooky, that has always been my thing. I've always had a passion for that. So when I found out about this podcast and paranormal investigation, I told myself I would really like to give that a try. I think that I would really enjoy that. I've had some paranormal experiences, not a ton, but some. And I'm semi-skeptic. I'm an open-minded skeptic.
And that's what we need.
Yeah, I'm not conceited enough to believe that nothing's out there. I kind of like you. I go by the evidence.
Well, that's great. And I'm really tickled to have you aboard. Now, you've looked at some of the past Mothman videos, some on YouTube, and you've listened to us on the radio. So do you find some of them to be interesting? And could I ask you to tell the viewers that they need to go back and listen to some, if that's the way you feel?
Oh, yes. The podcasts they're great. I listen to Coast to Coast podcast. They have 3 or 4. There's one that she talks about Hat Men, and then there's the one that is the George Norrie podcast, and there's one by Sandra Champlain. They're great, but this one is awesome, and I really like that it was local to me. That was awesome to hear that. But when you go back and you listen to the older podcast, you get to hear Amanda and Bruce, and Amanda is she's amazing. She is so knowledgeable, and Bruce is so interesting as well. So they're good to listen to just get a feel for the podcast, and you will love it. If you're interested in the paranormal and you go back and listen to those podcasts, you'll love it. We also have a radio show. What's the name of it?
Mothmanradio.com.
Well, the Into the Light that you play.
Oh, you're talking about the past.
Yeah,
we have a Lights Out episode that we play, and that's an episode that we play that our grandparents mostly listened to. It's one that back before there was a TV, that everybody gathered around the radio and they listened to these podcasts, and they're very interesting. A lot of them a lot of them that I think you'll really enjoy. And I've had a lot of people tell me they really enjoy them at work at night. They can listen to them, or they drive in the car and they can listen to them. So look for those. But it's an episode called Lights Out, and we'll be interjecting those in with our live podcast also. So that's something that we're looking forward to.
Yeah. So it's not just the live podcasts that are interesting. It's also the Lights Out. I've sat and listened to it, and I'll occasionally listen to it when I'm working, a lot when I'm driving. And it just, it gives you something to think about. And I enjoy it. And that's why I wanted to be part of it.
And what's starting our investigation is an FBI agent by the name of John. Speak it for me.
John D'Souza.
John, I apologize. I'm just terrible with last names. And but he is a 25-year-old veteran of the FBI. And during his time there, he maintained a top secret clearance, which I know for a fact is he was able to see things that you and I won't be able to see or ever will see. Mm-hmm. Even though they release this data, be careful, because you might see something up front and something's going on in the back. And that's what they're trying to do, is keep your focus on something. So it's kind of he questions it, and I questioned it also. If you're releasing this data, what's really going on? Because you haven't released this data in 50 years, and now you're releasing this data, and I'm not sure that it's because that I forced you to do it. It's because you wanting to put the eyeball on something other than what the truth is. Exactly. So we're really looking into that too. But when he was working with the FBI, he worked for the Global War and Terrorist Operation, and he also did paranormal cases. He was the actual real X-Files FBI agent. And they used some of his cases that the FBI would allow them to use in some of the original X-Files shows that started back in the 90s, the X-File TV shows. So I've got a little clip here I want to play, and it's about him and an introduction to our future podcast. But we're going to play that right now.
When everything else fails, they got nothing else. They're going to have to go to fake alien invasion.
It's a mind-blowing situation. For the public, it's like, a conspiracy theory, it's entertaining. But if you're actually in a responsible position and you find out that there's a whole secret government program that you don't know about, it's a shock.
This report comes from a shadowy Pentagon department that was shut down in 2012.
The disclosure movement has been hijacked by people parroting the narrative and the script being written by these black projects. I would say 90+% of everything that's going to come out is false.
There's going to be no more of these near misses.
The most widely seen UFO right now is not alien, it's actually ours.
It's a great cover story for all kinds of criminal activities. Blame it on the aliens, right?
If we are being visited by interdimensional beings, we should know about it.
It's going to be the truth within the lie.
This disadvantage of the truth being much more unbelievable than the fiction.
It's the crash retrievals that are the Rosetta Stone for solving the UFO cover-up.
This is Operation Failsafe.
The implications of this is the difference between extinction-level civilization versus one that's going to take off to the stars.
So that was very interesting. And that's where we're going to start our investigation, the truth within the lie. So I'll be doing some research on that, and we'll be doing some research on that. And
if you'd like to do your own research, John D'Souza has a book. It's available on Amazon. It's called The Extra Dimensionals. I'm in the process of reading that, and that gives a lot of information about this.
Yeah, don't give away all our secrets for our research.
It's a new theory, so there's not a lot out there about it.
We're going to dive straight into to the middle of this thing and see where we come out. I'm excited about this new Mothman podcast, and I hope you will find this more exciting material than even in the past. So I'm enjoying working with Ann, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy listening to her. And so we're going to try to bring to you the facts of the interdimensionals. Good night. This is the Mothman.
Good night.